I'm delighted to introduce today Paolo Gallo. He is a coach, an author, and a speaker who does all kinds of amazing things across the world. He's held C-suite roles around people and learning at places such as the World Economic Forum or the World Bank. He's studied at Bocconi and at Georgetown. He writes for the Harvard Business Review and Forbes and of course many other places. And not last but not least, his own book, The Compass and the Radar, which was published in 2016 and has already been translated into many languages, covers a subject very dear to us, which is the art of building a rewarding career while remaining true to yourself. Paolo, thank you very much. Welcome, benvenuto. And why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about your early career and what brought you to the work that you do today?
Well, first of all, thank you, Claire. It's really a pleasure for me to be your guest today. Well, fundamentally, there is a great story and not such a great story. The not such a great story, I realized that a lot of stuff that I studied at university, I wasn't even remotely interested in going deeper, such as finance, for example. I've never been interested in this topic. But I always been interested in people behavior. When I say people behavior in organizations, and therefore working in human resources was to me a natural, let's say, trajectory of my professional choice. And I was very lucky because I've been in love with this profession and with people development all my life, and this passion continues today.
You've had a career that all of us could absolutely define as successful. You've done all kinds of things that look from the outside extremely impressive. How would you define a successful career?
Here, actually, this is interesting because my book is about that. Fundamentally, I've been working in human resources. I've been head of human resources for the European Bank in London, for the World Bank in Washington, D.C., for the World Economic Forum in Geneva. And so I really reflected on, what does it mean having a successful career, and which kind of, let's say, ingredients do you need to have in order to define a career successful. Usually the conventional definition is about salaries, power, climbing the corporate ladder, this kind of dimension, and in a way is understandable. But by working in these organizations and by being head of human resources, I end up with a different response. Because to me, a successful career cannot exclusively be defined by, let's say, promotions, money, power, or a corner office. Is to do something that is more meaningful. And in my book, I try to explain, the different way of looking at a successful career. So just to be specific, to me, it's more about the impact that you have in your community with the people around you. It's about the learning that you acquire in doing what you're doing. It's about the meaning of what you're doing that is more than a job description, a series of KPIs. So if you look at from this perspective, then you end up, I believe, that a successful career is possible for everybody, while if you define also in terms of getting to the number one is exclusive to only a selected number of people. And incidentally, as I work with a lot of people at number one, I'm not so sure they're particularly happy themselves. So this book is, to me, helps people to reflect about a different meaning and a different framing of having a successful career.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Have there been moments in your own career where you felt less happy or less fulfilled and satisfied according to your own compass and radar?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been working for organization for 30 years, and I left exactly 2 years ago. I left beginning of March 2 years ago, and so I left the corporate work 2 years ago. And of course, you have, high moments and low moments. And then I was trying to understand the correlation between the highs and the lows. What has happened during the highs? What's happened during the lows? And there's nothing to do with the promotions or salary increases or power. Is to do with, in my view, three dimensions. First of all, was I learning something? And so to me was the awareness of learning and increasing my own let's say capacity, or maybe the sensation that I was not learning much. And in fact, in my first job, I remember I was in New York working for Citibank and in human resources. And at the time, Citibank changed the policy for the car because people were entitled to have a car of a certain level and above. And so I remember spending a month explaining the policy about cars to people. And then one day, I stopped for a beer. I was alone, and they said, "Paolo, you did not want to become an expert in cars. What are you doing in this job?" So I realized that I was pretty much not learning much, and therefore I decided to leave and to do something different. And the highs is when I've learned, of course, when I was able to do good work for the organization and feeling I was contributing, and a lot has to do with the manager that I had. Because in my career, I had 17 different managers from 14 different countries, some of them unbelievably great, some of them okay, some of them not so good, and a couple of them absolutely atrocious. I mean, to me, psychopaths. And so when I was working with these two people, I was particularly depressed, even if maybe my salary was particularly high. So to me, the enjoyment of a career is a lot to do with the impact, with the learning, and with the quality of the relationship that you have with your team and with your manager.
Fantastic. I think we agree on many points of that. One of the things I've been wondering about, and Antoine certainly has too, is the link between learning and education systems. And you've been focused in corporate organizations and in less corporate but nevertheless organizations in learning as well as people roles. And I'm wondering how you contrast what you see in companies with what you see in institutions such as Harvard or Bocconi, or indeed schools, and whether you think we're educating people in the right way for life and happiness today.
Well, not really, but let's maybe be realistic. When you work in an organization, the amount of, let's say, resource an organization invests on people learning is usually quite limited. And I'm afraid to say, but as soon as there is a crisis, usually the first item that is cut. And now I fear that even the coronavirus, our organization will start saving money by cutting this investment on people. One. And two, is also fair to say the organization are keen to invest in learning for skills that are useful for the organization. And in a way, this is plausible, is understandable. But this is not the game that you should play. What I mean by this is, let's say that you are a financial analyst and in a bank, and the organization wants you to become and to learn more about sophisticated financial instruments, and they send you to some interesting and valuable training courses to become even a better financial analyst. That's great, but it's fundamentally investing for you to be better at what you're doing. The game that you should play is also to have a different conversation with yourself and understanding what you want to learn. What are the things that keep me employed and relevant in the new economy? Which kind of skills are going to be a premium in the future rather than just today in my current role? So I'm simply advocating, and I said this in my book, that you also need to have your own learning journey, which cannot be dictated exclusively by the organization where you work. And so I be jokingly, but I keep on saying, in the era of machine learning, you have to become a learning machine. You have to keep on learning continuously, otherwise you end up to be irrelevant or forgotten in some organization.
Absolutely. So you talk about becoming a learning machine yourself as an individual. And I'm wondering, is that one of the factors that you use to decide who you're going to work with when you're picking clients? You speak, you write, you teach, you coach, you do this all at a high level. You must have clients clamoring to work with you. How do you decide which ones are the clients you want to work with?
No, listen, I don't want to give the impression that I have, people knocking on my door on a daily basis to say, oh, please, Paolo, come and work with us. But I think it's fair to say that in the criteria that I use to work with a client, and I'm going to give an example that you're going to probably be surprised. I put the financial dimension as last.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is what is my learning opportunity to work with this specific client, and what is the reputation and the affiliation that I want to acquire by working with this specific client. So, just to give an example, I'm very honored to work with United Nations, but I would not work with a company that is in the tobacco or weapon business, because I don't respect the specific business at all. So to me, regardless of, when I was head of human resources or right now as a, let's say, independent individual, the learning dimension is key. And I give an example. I had two opportunities, an opportunity to give a speech in Rome in May, one for a company that would have paid me quite a lot of money to give a speech, but it's a company I don't particularly love. And the second one is to give a speech in the biggest jail in Italy, in the biggest prison called Reconstruction, to a group of inmates. They're going to be leaving they say the situation, fundamentally being released from jail in the next 12 months. And they're part of a program subsidized by the state for them to be trained to be able to get some jobs, because there are some strong correlation between finding a job and being able to leave criminality for good, or not finding a job and therefore coming back to, let's say, crime, because people, they need to have an income eventually. Well, guess the one that I decided. Okay. And so, and you may think that from a financial standpoint, I took a wrong decision because I left 15,000 euros on the table. But to me, the opportunity to work and to meet these people, to be exposed to them, is something that's going to give me a huge amount of experience and memories that to me worth more than the money. Now, I don't want to give the impression that I work for free for everybody and I'm a millionaire. Of course, I'm not. But what I'm trying to say that to me, the financial side, if you constantly put as a priority the financial side, you may make a little bit more money in the next 6 or 12 or maybe 2 years. But because the learning will dry out, then eventually you're out of the game. So you have to invest in your learning constantly. And that's a recurrent theme that I constantly discuss in whatever capacity I fulfill in this given moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. That reminds me that we had a question about freedom. And although we're talking about different kinds of freedom here, then it's nice to be reminded of the ultimate sorts of freedom in that piece of work you'll be doing soon. You have a whole chapter in your book about freedom. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by freedom in relationship to a career, and let's particularly touch on the apparent contradiction of wanting to be free and yet many of us at least having to play by the rules of an organization.
This is an amazingly important question, Claire, and I'm grateful that you pause for a second on reflect on this one. Now, a lot of people, and I can make a joke, a lot of Italians think, as I'm one of them, think that freedom means I do the heck I want when I want. Well, this is not freedom. This is not freedom. This is anarchy. This is being shallow. And this is fundamentally reflects a bit of a teenager kind of approach in which, freedom means I do whatever I want. I don't care about the rules, etc., etc. That's not what I mean by freedom. What I mean by freedom is making conscious choices that will allow you to walk tall, not to be, let's say, in difficult conversations, and not to be, in Italian we say ricattato. Sorry, the word doesn't come to my mind right now. Means that nobody can use it against you because you've done some, funky business or you cut corners. So freedom is a lot to do with the integrity of your moral compass. because I don't mind doing mistakes, but nobody could say that I've done something, let's say, that is immoral or unethical. That's one. The second dimension is, of course, when you enter an organization, whatever organization, it could be a company, a sports club, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, whatever. You have to comply with the rules of that organization. No? Mm-hmm. And in my book, I explain that there's a chapter called Welcome to the Zoo, because fundamentally you need to understand the operating model of that organization, the culture, and understanding the kind of animal that you're going to meet. When I say by animal, I mean some predictable behavior, some of the people that you're going to find in this organization. So to me, being, let's say, in line with the values of this organization is important. So you need to reflect on your values vis-a-vis the values of this organization. But you also have to keep the critical thinking that you have in order not to conform or even worse, to give a blind obedience to the people that are working in this organization. And therefore, aligning and understanding the culture, absolutely yes. But if the culture and the values are not the one that you belong to, you shouldn't be there in the first place. And you also have to keep on being alert about your own values. Otherwise, you end up being a prisoner of that organization. This is not good for you. And there is a chapter called "The Price You Pay," which is a bit about this specific dimension.
Let's step back a bit and talk about what led you to write your book. I'm quite sure that before you decided to write it, you had some serious thinking. You were probably writing articles and papers and all kinds of things before then. But what led you to that mammoth task of writing a book?
But listen, there is a selfish dimension, there is an altruistic dimension. The selfish dimension is I used to work in an organization that pushed people to go faster and faster and faster. I mean, I think that the motto of my former organization was faster. No, whatever you were doing, you should have done faster. And maybe because I hit 50 years old when I was there, I realized that there is a moment in life, at least in my own life, in which rather than going faster, you also need to go deeper rather than faster. And depth implies reflection, studying, silence, and fundamentally a different modality of operating. So to me, it was almost like a psychological antidote of organization that was pushing everybody, including me, to go faster all the time. So that was the selfish dimension. The second one, because I got in my life, I don't know how many people came to me, friends, friends of friends or whatever, asking for advice and counseling and coaching and mentoring and listening. And so I realized that A, I enjoyed it, and B, maybe I wasn't too bad in doing it. And therefore I thought that in order to help more people, writing a book was probably a good approach. And so I wrote this book for the sake of helping people in their own professional journey. And the fact that this book ended up in 8 different languages and won few prizes, the rest, that gave me the sensation that I was able to help people, and that gave me quite a lot of joy.
Fantastic. So writing, speaking, coaching, consulting, all kinds of different things. You are obviously a polymath or a multi-potentialite, depending on which level of recentness of title you want to embrace. But tell us about how you juggle all the different interests you have and how you make the choices day to day, week to week, month to month about the emphasis that you place on the work you do.
Well, Claire, I don't. I would challenge this question a bit, because I don't think there are different things. That it's the same things in a different modality. Mm-hmm. What I mean by this is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I'm interested in people behavior. No? Mm-hmm. So coaching to me is a wonderful discipline in which, with a one-to-one, I'm helping individuals in their own professional journey. And right now I have about, 25, 30 different people that I'm working, from CEOs to more junior individuals. So this is quite a lot of learning from me. Then public speaking. Public speaking is 10% of an activity that starts with studying, with getting new ideas and reading, usually topics that I'm particularly interested, related to learning, related to the fourth industrial revolution, related to the new economy. And then when I study, I end up having more ideas. And then this idea is usually translated in an article, in a chapter of a book, or maybe in a slide in the conversation, a presentation I'm going to give maybe a few weeks later. Mm-hmm. And the academic activity is to a certain extent on that line, knowing that as a quote audience, I have a bunch of young students or a group of executives from different organizations. So the way I see is almost an assembly line in which there are different components, different sequences in my own journey, but all of them relevant to the overall interest in developing people and helping people in organizations. So to me, it's a lot of fun. I don't know how to say, but is a hobby, and I'm even surprised a lot of people pay me to do this hobby.
That sounds very familiar. Very familiar. Yeah. I think that I know in my experience, I would add that I get bored easily by doing the same modality all the time. So being able to flick from one to the other while focusing on the thing that makes life and work fun is certainly a wonderful capacity. Tell me a little bit about how you research. I guess you create thinking and you access other people's thinking. How do you keep up to date, and how do you explore the thinking and the knowledge around people and careers and development over time?
First of all, I have to say that because I've been spending 30 years in the corporate world, and I've been traveling to and working in 82 different countries. I'm quite lucky because I feel that I have a lot of boxes, open boxes with a lot of content that perhaps I've accumulated without really reflecting too much on it over the last 30 years. Now, what does it mean? I give an example of working in Zimbabwe when the inflation rate was 37 million%. I ended up spending 6 months there. What does it mean working in a project at the World Bank where we trained sexual workers to give them dignity in a dignified role in society rather than doing what we're doing before? What does it mean being head of human resources in the middle of September 11? What does it mean being head of human resources in the middle of a merge, of a restructuring? What does it mean leading teams in 450 people in 25 different countries? What does it mean being fired? Because I've been fired once in my life, and I will never forget this traumatic experience. And so when what I'm trying to convey is I think I accumulated quite a lot of experience, and there are two things that I believe I learned from two organizations where I worked. The first one at the World Bank, the importance of data, the importance of whatever you're saying, whatever you explain has to be grounded with data evidence. You cannot just tell a story. And what I believe I've learned at the World Economic Forum, the capacity to develop a narrative which is convincing, accessible, and fun. And I think my book, I believe, kind of reflects a bit this modality. How you learn? Well, you learn in 100 different ways. You learn from a podcast, or you learn from a TED talk. You learn from books. The last 5 books that I read, all of them are related to creativity, for example. And to me, it's a topic I'm particularly interested. And then the pleasure of digging deeper. Then you read a book. Then you go and you listen to TED talk. You maybe there is another article on the subject by the same authors, and then you look at the footnotes, and there are different quotations. Then you go to another book. So even now, I'm gonna make you laugh. I just was doing the taxes this year. This year I spent 9,000 euros in books. You may say that I'm crazy, but to me, is a wonderful way of being updated, of going deeper in some topics. And every day I tend to spend at least 2 hours reading and studying, because without this I cannot really progress.
How do you keep that discipline of reading every day for 2 hours? Do you have a particular time of day, or how do you maintain that absolute rhythm?
But to me, I start the day by reading. So before jumping to emails or whatever, usually I wake up quite early, around 6. So between 7 to 8, I do this with my cup of coffee. And then in the evening, unless there's something I really want to watch on TV, I don't watch TV at all, and I read, and to me it's fun. And I don't want to give the impression that all I do is studying, but my wife is teasing me all the time, because every single time we travel, I always travel with 10 books, even if we're going to wait for the weekend. And I said, no, listen, I want to have the choice of the books. I'm not going to read 10 of them, but at least I can choose between 10 of them. And, my wife kind of got used of my little perversion of bringing books with me. It's discipline, but it's like asking an alcoholic, what is the discipline in drinking wine? I mean, it's a pleasure for him.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure. So to me, it's a pleasure. So I just have to find the time, and I have to confess, at times I cut unnecessary activities that don't give me quite a lot of joy. So,
tell us specifically, if you can. You spent a lot of time with the World Economic Forum, and it would be really interesting to hear some of the things that you consider to be your biggest achievements or learnings while you were there. Tell us about the highs and the lows of that time.
No, listen, perhaps on the World Economic Forum, I think is an organization with a lot of wonderful features. It's a dynamic organization. It's a lot of fun. But from a human resources standpoint, the organization is relatively small. It's only 700 people. And when I was there, but I think the data are not so different right now, the organization used to receive around 40,000 applications per year for 100 vacancies. So there was a huge amount of people all over the globe, mainly from Europe and non-exclusively. They want to join the forum. And so there is an oversupply of qualified and motivated candidates that want to come and work for you. This is rather unique. Of course, there are other organizations that benefit from the same, reputation or wealth of talent that comes to you. So the problem to me was an attraction of people, but retention. And retention is, stay in the organization for a longer period of time because you believe in the mission of this organization. So I didn't have the problem of attracting candidates because they were coming anyway. I had more the challenge to say, and then what, once you join over there? So I think I've used quite a lot of efforts with my team to build a career path, learning programs, and fundamentally try to improve the quality of management, because, as you know, is one of the big factors that drives people commitment or lack of commitment when the management is toxic. So I think I don't want to claim a victory, because it's never a victory in whatever job you're doing. But I think it was fair to say that it was a nice journey with some tangible results that the organization observed.
Well done. We love it when we see organizations and people who value strongly that need for a clear and fulfilling career path once you're inside, rather than just coming into the place with the shiny objects. And certainly in the work that Antoine and I do, we still encounter a lot of organizations, a lot of clients or potential clients who seem to have still a lot of reluctance to help people manage their careers in a supported way. What are you seeing out in the world of clients now? Obviously, when you guide an organization and able to influence it, you could create strong developmental career paths for people. But when you look at your clients these days, what are you seeing?
Well, listen, this is another great question. And incidentally, at the end of this month, I'm going to give a speech in an organization in Geneva. They asked me to discuss about that, no? And so let me start with a very simple question. who is driving your career? Okay, who owns your career? And some people may think, well, is the company where I work. Some people may say, is the manager. And some people will say, I don't know, is fate, is luck, is no luck at all. And what I'm encouraging people to think is to say, you drive your own career. You are on the driving seat of your career. The task of the organization is to provide the transparency and the tools for you to grow in a certain direction. No? So I think that the attitude that some people, maybe some organization have, which is say, oh, listen, you join in March 2020, in March 2021, you're going to get promoted, then you're going to do this training, the other, it doesn't work that way. Look what's happening right now with the coronavirus. The entire, the planet is disrupted right now, is under a panic attack, and so maybe you should have gone to New York for a wonderful training course, and you go to the airport and it seems that the flight are canceled. So what I'm trying to say, that if you rely on external events or people, organization, your boss, to drive your own career, you will end up disappointed. I'm encouraging people to say, think about your own career trajectory and work hard in order to make it happen. But learning is not like getting a suntan. You don't lie on the floor and next thing you know, you get a suntan and you're done. It's something you have to do. My father used to tell me something that I found very funny. Is a bit unpolite, but it's true. And he used to tell me, Paolo, if you feel like an idiot, it means that you're learning. And it's true. Now, so feeling like an idiot means getting out of your comfort zone. Think about, for example, when you learn another language, okay? When you learn another language, at the very beginning, the first 6, 9, 12 months, you feel like an idiot because you are incapable to express thoughts and ideas with the clarity that you have in your own language. But if you overcome this difficult moment of being inadequate, in 1 year or 2 years' time, or maybe 3 at the latest, you're going to be fluent in that different language. So I'm encouraging people, I know it sounds a bit funny, try to feel like an idiot quite frequently, because it means that you're out of your comfort zone and you keep on learning. I don't think people should really ask organization to say, you're in charge of your career, please make it happen. It doesn't work this way. And if you think that way, you're going to be disappointed because it's not going to work that way.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you and we use the term disruption quite a lot. Our fundamental belief is that we each need to disrupt our own career, or we'll simply be disrupted by someone or something else. And so I think our thinking and values are very aligned on that subject. Tell me a little bit more about your vision of disruption. Your speaker's banner says that you're a disruptor. We're obviously big fans of disruption. Tell me how you see disruption and how you believe we can make the best use of it.
Okay, let me answer from another angle, which I think is going to be helpful, at least for me to answer to this very tricky question, because disruption is a term that so many people, organizations are using. Okay, Now, up until now, organizations are recruiting and hiring people based on the set of experience and competencies they have accumulated up to that moment. Okay. There is a job description to say, I need, let's say, 10 years experience in this field, this academic qualification, these languages. And, if you have this qualification, blah, 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 and you're lucky enough to go for an interviews, it's possible you're going to get a job. So fundamentally, up until now, organizations are taking a picture of what you have done in the past and assuming that because of that reason, you will be doing well in the future in a different context. Okay. Now, a lot of organizations, they have abandoned completely the job description. They've abandoned completely the academic requirement, and they're more interested in something completely different, which is learnability, the capacity for you to learn something new. Okay. And there are other organizations like Manpower or others that are developing instruments to learn and to understand and to measure what does it mean learnability. So fundamentally, it means, okay, you've been able to do job blue for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Today is job blue, but tomorrow can be job red or job green or job yellow. And so what I'm interested in, can you learn a different color rather than becoming more and more competent and professional in your current role? Mm-hmm. So disruption, to think, if you think about, is a lot to do with this. Is the capacity to say, okay, what I've learned is important, is the base of what I'm doing, but what I will be able to learn is even more important because the world is changing so fast. Because the jobs of the future require a completely different set of skills compared to the one of the past, you know? And therefore, from the individual standpoint, disruption is a capacity, is the acknowledgement to say, be proud of what you've achieved so far, but think about a taxi driver. Every day you have to put the meter back to zero and you start it from scratch. So if you put the meter back to zero and you have this mentality that you're going to eat what you kill, you're going to learn and you're going to be relevant for the future. If you're relying on what you've learned maybe 20 or 30 or 10 years ago, is rather difficult to believe that you're going to be relevant for more than 3 to 5 years. This is what is to me disruption.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us about Frankenstein.
No, Frankenstein is, as I mentioned, I live in Geneva, and I love Geneva. It's a wonderful place to live. And some time ago, I gave a TED talk about this, and I was walking here in Geneva, and there was a plaque that said, "Here, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein." Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that. Of course, I knew Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, but she has written that book in Geneva, close to Geneva, in a beautiful villa called Villa Deodati. And fundamentally, and then I reread the book, and it's an amazing book that I strongly recommend people reading. And the first phrase that the monster pronounced to the doctor, this is called Frankenstein. So the monster doesn't have a name, but the doctor is called Victor Frankenstein. He said to him, "You are my creator, but I will become your master." And this book is written in 1820, so exactly 200 years ago. And it was an amazing insights and foresights about a possible consequence of the first industrial revolution, because when it was written, we were at the center of the first industrial revolution. So by looking at what Frankenstein has said and what Mary Shelley has written, is fundamentally the acknowledgement that the economic and technological progress could have created a monster. And this issue is still true after 200 years. Okay, this is a very apocalyptic, negative view of the transformation of the economies and all the rest. Now, there are, of course, optimistic people. They think that actually the progresses are, creating phenomenal opportunities. And it's true. And so a lot of people are, let's say, they tend to be on the negative side or on the positive side. So they tend, a little like the politics, to go one area or one extreme to the other. And personally, I think that both of them are right. The pessimistic people they have a point in saying, a lot of jobs will be destroyed. And the optimistic people, they are saying, and they're right by saying, a lot of jobs will be created. What is interesting to know that the jobs that will be created will require a new set of skills compared to the one that are being destroyed. So if you are made redundant by, let's say, a bank, and you work in cash management transaction, is unlikely that you're going to get a similar job in another bank. So the economy has created not the unemployed people, but the unemployable people, because the set of skills that they offer is no longer relevant. So what I'm trying to convey here is to say both views, philosophical views of negative and positive, have a fundamental reason to exist. But rather than be optimistic or pessimistic, try to understand that the new economy implies different business model and different skills. Therefore, people and organizations have to disrupt, to adapt and learn.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's a wonderful image, certainly, using that very old statement by the monster. Let's go for a final question before we wrap up. which is what you would change about your own career if you had 2020 hindsight.
Perhaps in retrospect, I should have been more cautious in trusting people that didn't deserve my trust. And perhaps I should have, once I had a wonderful coach, and once she asked me a question that has stayed in my mind for the last 15 years. And she said, Paolo, think when being right is not the right things to do. And so perhaps in terms of behavior, I think the fact that in some cases I could have, and I was probably right from the let's say technical standpoint, wasn't necessarily helpful and useful for my own career. So to answer in a less elegant way, I think in retrospect I should have shut up in some occasions. But at the end of the day, I kind of enjoy what I've done anyway, and so I don't regret anything. And I've been incredibly lucky in my own career. I met wonderful people, and I've been very lucky to also meet my wife at the World Bank, and we've been together for 25 years. So I don't want to exaggerate, but the importance of having the right partner in your life journey is fundamentally in having a meaningful career. So I would replace the word successful career with a meaningful career.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add before we finish up?
I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's always helpful to exchange views in a meaningful way with colleagues that have the passion of developing people and helping people in their careers. And Claire, I feel that we are in the same space when it comes to this specific topic. So thank you for that. We
absolutely are. And we love meeting and conversing with those who think with a similar level of importance about these kinds of things. Obviously, we don't think in exactly a similar way, otherwise the world wouldn't be interesting. But giving a similar level of importance to this thing is absolutely crucial to us, and we're delighted to get the privilege of spending time with you. So
fantastic.
I will wrap it up and say grazie mille. And we will look forward to sharing this with the rest of the world.